the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joining the meeting tonight are Luke. No, Luke is here. Sorry, I looked at you and then I said Luke. Toby and Sheila.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Toby.
Oh, he's outside, so those are real words.
Real words.
All right, so the first item is the approval of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? I can't see Toby, so.
Say aye, Toby.
Hi, Toby.
Unanimous. All right, I'm having trouble with getting up my, agenda.
And now I can't see mine.
Or share with
The
me.
next thing is the consent agenda.
Thank you.
The tabletop mics.
Next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Toby?
Hi.
And the next item is approved KSDE waiver.
Tonight, I have sent to you our waiver packet, and so that is in Board Docs for you to refer to this evening. In addition to that, I also sent you the full packet for our entire plan. And Sheila is here tonight via Google Hangout or Google Meet to present to you that information so that we can hopefully get your approval tonight and send this off to the State Department tomorrow because they would really love to have it from us. Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay.
Talk
Can everybody
real,
hear me okay?
you're gonna have to talk really loud.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wish I was there with you all in the same room instead of how we're doing this, but we're gonna get through it the best that we can. And Deb is going to be the one that will advance through the slides. So Deb, let's go ahead and go to the next one, please.
Yes. Okay.
And I can see that. That helps. Thank you. So on Monday, March 23rd, 25 educators from our PLC, which stands for Professional Learning Council, district mentor teachers, and admin from both the building and district level, met for about 3 hours to begin the process of brainstorming and dialoguing and discussing the details for our plan. I believe this quote says it all. And I'm so appreciative of all of the work that everyone is doing and working together for the benefit of our district and our community. Okay, Deb. So then the slides you will see tonight are a product of that 25-member team and the input of all of the educators in our district. The USD 373 Continuous Learning Plan was developed and implemented in partnership with teachers, staff, administration, and now you this evening as the Board of Education, while following the guidance of the Harvey County Health Department, Center for Disease Control, and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. The plan will be guidance for USD 373 educators to meet the immediate need of supporting learning outside of our normal practices. This plan focuses on critical learning for students while using materials, resources, and platforms that were already in use. Instructional models may include a blending of non-technology, online tools, and small group instruction. This slide highlights the framework each of us are remembering as we work through this fourth quarter. The most important word I continue to say and hear is grace. These are definitely uncharted times and historical moments that are unimaginable and yet so emotional for all of us. Okay, Deb. So what you see here are some of the schedules that are going on, and to begin, that team that I mentioned, that PLC district mentor teacher team, met for 6 hours over a period of days. And this also included another group, the district grade level content area facilitators. For that Google Meet, we had almost 60 educators online. This branching out allowed for the feedback cycle to occur to develop the continuous learning plan. Technology and educational surveys were administered so that input and feedback from families could be a part of the details. And on here, you'll see several teams that are going to be meeting over this time period from, I just lost the notes, from March 30th until May 15th. The district grade level content area facilitators will meet weekly to assure the vertical and horizontal alignment of teaching and learning and assessment. District and building administration teams will meet 2 times each week to collaborate and adjust supports as needed for staff. And then grade level teams and departments will also meet weekly to collaborate, plan, and participate in professional learning to best deliver the continuous learning plan for students. I don't believe I have this one on there, but we also have our district mental health team that will meet regularly to respond to our social, emotional, and mental health needs of students and families.
And staff.
And staff, yes. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. So to break down the plan a little bit, this is what we call the administrative section, and this one speaks to our administrators. The bulleted items that you see there are what each building administrator should be incorporating into their actions and plans each day. I might add that it was extremely beneficial to have the KSD guidance available as we went through this process. Much appreciation to the team of 40 educators that got together to help us here in Newton. And Deb, you'll have to let me know if they've got questions as we're going through.
Not seeing anything so far.
Okay. The next one here is then for the teachers, and this would be for all of the classroom teachers pre-K-12. Grade level and content area teams met to define the critical or essential standards for the fourth quarter. Our TASN team that we've worked with for the last several years has also been very helpful. They provided resources to consider for ELA and math. Project Lead the Way was also another resource that we use in almost all of our buildings, and they shared documents for teachers to review as well. So in this, we've created a massive Google sheet that has tabs for every grade level for teachers to post their critical or essential standards for ELA and math, as well as some of our other content areas. And that's going to guide them through their weekly conversations as they're looking at the progress of teaching and learning. And if you will, kind of like that fourth quarter curriculum map in comparison to what we might have used when we put together our ELA and math teams. But as you look at all of this, one of the things that we are asking teachers to do is to have the grace and flexibility given the circumstances that might be going on in each of our households. So one of the first things that definitely came up, One of the first things that came up was definitely focus on social and emotional needs first. We are making sure that each step considers that, as well as the mental health needs of everyone involved, whether that be students, family, or staff. The social workers and counselors have done an outstanding job of putting resources together, and I believe when I last checked about a week ago on our USD 373 website, there's a link on there called the School Social Work and Counselor Corner site. And the district mental health team works on that and has also partnered with community and county agencies so that we can work together to be responsive to families through these difficult times. Next, we looked at food distribution. And so once we were able to prioritize those SEL needs, Elaine was working diligently with food service and coordinating efforts, acquiring staff that were willing and able to prepare and serve thousands of meals already. Deb, I was going to look at the last number and I didn't have that at my fingertips, but we wanted to assure that our families did not have to worry about meals during the school day. And we moved on to looking at what tools do we already have in use and in our classrooms. So what you see here are some things that would have been familiar to students and hopefully families as well. Brenda Lampman and her staff have been going above and beyond to make sure that devices have been available to families and students along with resources and how to acquire the internet. If that is not possible, then teachers are creating learning packs for students as an alternative, so there isn't anything that's prohibiting them from continuing their learning. Based on surveys families answered, teachers have set office hours and live sessions so that caregivers can be available at the most appropriate times. And as you can see on the slide here, KSD set the parameters for the maximum amount of time each day per grade. So if I were thinking of second grade, for example, I see that there are 60 minutes in the day that would be spent. And this may include a live session from a classroom teacher, an activity from a special teacher, as well as learning activities, and to make sure that whoever is working with the students in that second grade classroom is not setting up anything that would go beyond that 60 minutes. Part of that, I believe, is going with the grace, and we have to keep in mind the demands of the family during this crisis, and that families are having to figure out how to do education while at home and still keeping everyone regulated, healthy, and safe. So the next part of our plan then is thinking about how we're providing support to our staff. And Megan Nagel was very instrumental in, first of all, having the privilege of being a part of the KSD Continuous Learning Task Force. I know that they spent several long days and nights working around the clock to put together the 67 or 76-page document. But again, with a tremendous benefit to us as a district. So then Megan also reached out to each building to identify leaders that are comfortable with technology, as well as sharing their expertise with others. And they were definitely willing to jump in and follow the draft of the plan as we were developing it, and design professional learning for their respective building. As I was checking in with Megan the other day, at one point on a Google Meet, I think she said that they had over 89 teachers online at the same time learning what they needed to help support their students. And I believe that we had over 230 teachers that participated in that professional learning, which would have been the week of March 23rd to the 27th. So much admiration to the staff that you see listed here for being willing and able and helping out for this piece of our plan. And for this next piece here, you'll see the expectations for taking attendance. Each teacher has a log to document the interactions with students based on a variety of methods. It might be that students participate online during a live session, and that could even be in a small group or one-on-one. So teachers are tracking that, or it might be that maybe they've had to make a phone call or send an email or even a text to the student or to a family member or caregiver. And they're recording those interactions, trying to keep track. It might even be that they're recording evidence of students completing their work through a tech resource or an app. If at the end of the week, there are students that are not having some form of interaction based on some of the examples I've shared, then the teacher is coordinating with the building administrator, counselor, or social worker to reach out to the families and students to see what they might be needing. Again, we have support from agencies in the community to also benefit our families if a social, emotional, or mental health issue might be occurring. And then as far as enrolling new students, I understand that we have had inquiries and requests for families to enroll their child during these last couple of weeks. And I know that the Student Data Management Department at ETC is coordinating with administrative assistants and building principals to enroll the students, just as if we would if we were all there in person. The next part of our plan talks about special education. Reagan Seidel and Amber Worknick have been working very hard to meet at least twice with all of the special education staff and giving them the guidance that they need to give the support based on federal laws. And one of those has been to create an individualized continuous learning plan for each student. The goal has been to understand that even though we are in a stay-at-home order, there might be instances where face-to-face instruction and or services may occur, and yet still following all CDC guidelines. The collaboration that was occurring as a part of our MTSS still continues, along with holding IEP meetings, and those are being done through Google Meet or phone calls. And I have visited most recently with teachers and administrators. They've been having quite a few of those already, trying to keep up with the time frame. Next, you'll see our ESOL. That would be for our students that are receiving English language learner services. And again, with this one, we're continuing our MTSS model of supporting students that have an individual learning plan, and all of the staff that would be supporting those students would have access to that through the campus. That was something we set up at the beginning of the school year. I hear that ELL aides are collaborating with classroom teachers by joining Google Meets to provide supports and services to students. In Google Meet, for example, they might be taking advantage of the closed caption feature or working with other Google Labs to do read alouds. And I do understand that we have staff that are bilingual and are translating for our students and families as well. This next slide has quite a bit of information on there, so hopefully you're able to read everything on there okay. So as I was looking back at my notes, I believe the first call that we made was on March 18th. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, as far as an incident command system tweet.
That's correct.
But then a few days later, we were asking teachers to spend the week of March 23rd to the 27th to participate in professional learning, meet with their respective building or grade level or content area, and define those critical standards, and then develop a set of plans based on parent surveys and student needs. Then they were also participating in that same week, as I mentioned already, professional learning for technology. And I would hate to think about how many phone calls, texts, emails, and Google Hangouts and meets and chats we've all participated in just a little under 3 weeks. In the midst of that, staff were juggling the task of taking care of their own families, setting up home offices, raising their children while working from home. I've gotten a glimpse of people's homes quite often through this, little ones wanting to see who's on the computer, seeing their faces, smiling, wanting to maybe even talk a little bit. But I've admired all of our staff and how hard they worked and to remain calm and to keep some form of balance. In 13 days, I think we can all proudly say that we have redesigned our entire system of how instruction is delivered, provided professional learning, as well as food and social and emotional supports for our students and family. And I do want to recognize also the countless efforts that custodial and maintenance staff have spent cleaning, taking care of our buildings to make sure that we can come and go and get what we need to get the online delivery or learning packets to our families, to the technology department working, I know, around the clock to get devices gathered and inventoried and ready to send home, with families to the food service, making themselves pretty vulnerable and being out and serving the food and taking care of everybody. This is our second week of delivering instruction. And as you can see on here, this is showing what teachers will be doing to work with students and families. As I'm getting to the end here at the high school, we had to think a little bit about our pathways and what that might look like for some of these that can literally only be done on-site and face-to-face. So a majority of the pathways and the courses that were occurring this semester are continuing online, and there has been an abundance of support from KSD in this regard as well, and thinking about how to set that up to save the time for the teachers. However, the courses you're seeing here are being held face-to-face, that welding, auto precision machining, the CNA, and the FACS. Custodial staff have been amazing as I hear reports from Blake Smith and thinking about how do they keep the area clean and safe for students as they come and rotate back and forth between their morning and afternoon sessions. And yet, through all of that, making sure everyone feels comfortable in doing that and giving them options if they feel like, as a teacher or as a student, that it isn't the best thing for them at that time and makes them just too nervous. Questions are still coming in regards to graduation and what way might we be able to honor our graduates. So I know that the high school is brainstorming and will be sharing updates as they have those, knowing that that's a pretty monumental event and students are concerned as well as families about, and staff, how can we celebrate that given where we are. I believe that you're going to hear a little more information about a proposal from the high school staff in that there is a very small group of students that we would like to extend the 21 credit option to. I understand that they had surveyed and looked at the current courses for students for this semester and how many that would impact, and it was a very small number at that. And then the last part there is just giving you a little bit of information from KSDE and sharing the Kansas Can I Am campaign. And I understand that our counselors have already shared information with students. And it is just one of the ways that we can recognize them in their senior year. In our HR world, we are still working to continue to hire new staff. We just participated in interviews this last week for our opening for the Walton principal. First time I've ever doing an entire cycle in that way. I would say that I'm very skilled in Zooms and Google Meets and Hangouts at this point, but that was definitely a different experience in doing it in an interview, but I'm glad that we can still continue in that way. So we will get the opportunity to do that a few more times. And then I asked some of our staff and administrators if they wouldn't mind giving just a little bit to you here. I won't read all of these to you, but just to show a little bit of their experiences so far with students, from classified staff being willing to take part and jump in and join in on these live sessions, or even a small group. To a second grade teacher being so excited to see her students as much as her students wanted to see her face and hear her voice. To a student that had jumped on with a special ed teacher and had already had the work done, but still wanted to talk to the teacher, just because she missed seeing her, as well as this teacher saying that this is the hardest and longest I've ever worked with hardly any sleep to try to get things ready for my students. To administrators sharing how they already are seeing quite a large percentage of students making connections, and that they will continue to evaluate and improve and refine as we go along. But that it's going pretty well given the circumstances. And then the last one is from a secondary teacher, and they share that the first 2 weeks have been filled with every emotion. I've shared laughter with colleagues and tears with those same ones. I've grieved with students as they begin working through disappointment and fear. And I have rejoiced with students as they begin to discover new hope while accepting the support that is so important for me to give. Never before have the connections I've made with children mattered so much. Through it all, I see learning happening. I am thankful that although the path was detoured, the journey continues, and tiny flowers of knowledge tenaciously bloom. I could not have said that any better myself. And with that, Deb, I can answer questions or give more clarification.
The only note is, as far as the packet that's in the board docs, it still has an error in the amount of hours. It's still saying we have 850 and we're asking to wait 366, which equals 12.
Okay, then I just put the wrong one in when I uploaded it the second time.
Okay,
So, because I did correct it, it's 266.
Yeah.
Yes. I will make that sure that that is correct before
I
we
just
send
wanna
it
make
to
sure
the state.
we're requesting the right hours.
Well, he did say I could pad it a little bit. That might be excessive, 100 hours.
I have a question. Do we have any idea how many kids or families we've not connected with at all?
I can give you an example, and Sheila might have more information, but just from one group of students from one team at the middle school, and there was 6% of the students that they had not been able to connect with by the end of the week last week. And so now they're into this week going about some different approaches, whether that's the administrator reaching out or we've sent our SROs on a couple of well-person checks just to make sure that the kids are okay at home because nobody's heard from the families. So we're trying to do that now that we finished the first week reaching out to families. Sheila, do you have any idea how many we have not?
I don't have a total number, Deb. I do know that another Google sheet, if you can only imagine, of putting those together and trying to track those. But I continue to hear a majority of families and students that they're able to connect with. So, but I don't have an exact number now.
And we are tracking that, but it's not the same as when we're in school every day.
Yeah.
And so we're also, because we're not putting it in Infinite Campus, it's more difficult for us to pull that information out.
Then the anecdote that you just shared, did you say 6% single digit?
Yes, single digit.
That's it.
I'm curious, out of the students that we have contacted families, how many of them are saying they have no access to the internet? How many of them are using the packets to get their work done versus getting online? Do we have a percentage or a number on that at all?
I don't have that information this evening. I think it is a relatively small number. We still do have parents who do not have access. And we recognized that that was going to be a problem going in. We are much, as a district, in much better shape than many other districts are, in that we were able to go one-to-one with all of our students. And we have informed parents. I know it's inconvenient, but you can go sit outside of a school building and still log into our internet. So high school kids, for example, can sit in the parking lot at high school and have access, even if they don't have access at home. So those things are available, and I imagine that we will have more information this week about what that looks like as far as the number of people that are taking advantage of other types of money.
And I might add too, Deb, in that this last week, we really asked all of our teachers just to try to connect with the families in some way, some shape, some form, and not jump right into the academics as much as possible. Of course, that would vary from grade band to grade band and the type of course. So yes, I would agree in that this week, I think we're gonna have a better idea as far as data and the numbers, whether, I think that's what the questions were being asked. It was hard for me to hear all of that, but how many are requesting learning packets via paper, or, the struggles with internet.
Right, that's what, you got the question right.
Okay.
But according to the survey, 90% of parents are reporting they do have internet access at home, but you don't know how many are utilizing that yet.
Right. But again, given that, that from that one group, if that was possible to extrapolate that out, you could say that 94% of the kids have access in some form, whether that's just an email or been on a Google Meet or something, that they've been connected with their teacher. And most of those multiple times. So.
And do we have a plan in place that this is just the first week, this will be the second week, so we have high numbers of participation? If for some reason those numbers would drop, what's the plan to kind of help with that?
Well, it'll be the same plan as what we had this last week, which was teachers making connections with parents and finding out what are the reasons behind why their child is not participating. And our goal here really is to encourage families to do that. But as Sheila said, secondary to that is showing grace and flexibility.
Right.
Because a child might start out really well, but as this progresses, or if they have a family member that is diagnosed, or, there could be any number of things that could happen that would really interfere with a child or a family's ability to participate. So we want to be cognizant of all of those things and understanding of those things. Okay. But we will continue to track.
Anything else?
Thanks for all the work on this.
Again, monumental task,
Yeah.
when you think about it, and some very, 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 very dedicated teachers that work extremely hard. And Sheila worked extremely hard, keeping all of the little pieces going in building this. So lots of people worked a lot of hours.
Okay.
I move to approve the waiver addressing the district's continuous learning plan, waiving attendance requirements and insurances required by Kansas State Department of Education.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Toby?
Toby, are you okay with that?
Aye.
Seven.
Sorry, you said unmute, but
It's hard to find.
Okay, next item is resolution for suspending board policy IHF.
And this is what we referenced earlier as part of Sheila's presentation, looking at how can we help a very small number of students that have finished their core requirements but may lack an elective. And so that's what this is looking at. It right now is about 20 students that would be able to graduate under this. That is 7% of the high school class. So it's, like I said, it's a small number of students that this will impact, but it will help those 20 kids be able to graduate on time.
Questions?
I move to approve the resolution for suspending board policy IHF graduation requirements.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Seven no.
Thank you.
Resolution regarding wage payments.
As part of the assurances for the waiver, we need to ensure that we are willing to continue to pay our staff. Now, this is also a part of the executive order that, according to the attorneys at KASB, was monumentally misunderstood by a whole bunch of people. In that, yes, we are required to do that, but they are also required to work unless they fall under certain criteria, and then as long as we have a job for them to do. So we are in the business now about trying to communicate that back out to our staff. Most of our staff has been superb about what can we do and how can we help, and so that's great. So we do recommend that the board approve this resolution.
Do you have any idea how many staff members we haven't been able to reassign, utilize?
Well, I don't know a number. We're working on that now. Again, last week, a whole lot of classified staff did not work because there wasn't anything, well, not last week, the week before. Last week, a number of staff members started working. This week, there will be more that are working. We also had a number of classified staff that have time in their day that are going to help distribute food, so that our food service personnel are able to follow the stable teaming and that kind of thing that we are now doing with our custodial staff. So we're getting more people on board, but again, they're not working their regular schedule, generally speaking.
I move to approve payments during emergency school closing as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Seven no. Public participation only.
And again, this is a recommendation from KASB regarding the suspension of public comment during this time, because we will have, generally speaking, 10 people here at every meeting, and as long as we are meeting live, there's not an opportunity really for the public to speak, so we need to suspend that. In addition to, if there was a time when we went to online, their recommendation is not to allow anyone to jump into your meeting. So that you have that as a closed meeting and only board members participate. It can still be viewed, but it cannot, a person can't just jump in and take over your meeting or comment in the middle of your meeting. So we do recommend that you do suspend public comment indefinitely, and at some point in time, add it back in. I move to approve suspending public participation for board policy BCBI at Board of Education meetings effective April 6, 2020 until further notice.
Moving second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-1. Passes. All right, I guess that's it. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.